at the White House. He will be issuing a new executive order that will begin the dismantling of the Department of Education. That's right. He's starting a program or an order that will dismantle the Department of Education. Thursday, that's tomorrow, March 20th, Donald Trump will schedule an event at the White House, Thursday afternoon to be specific. And he's going to invite Republican governors. He's already invited them, state education officials from all over the country. And you already know he's going to invite some kids. You can't have an educational policy or plan if you don't have a bunch of kids sitting in the front row looking like kids, you know, looking innocent and worthy of protection and care, because they do. Problem is, this plan ain't going to do it. But the White House is standing by this decision. And let's be honest. Donald Trump promised this on the campaign trail. He did not leave this up to interpretation. He didn't leave it up to guesswork. Donald Trump was like, look, I'm going to tear down this government. I'm going to shrink the state, a la Ronald Reagan. And one of the places I'm going to do it is the Department of Education. And it sort of makes sense. I mean, he chose Linda McMahon, wife of Vince McMahon. If you didn't know the last name, the family, the duo that built the WWF and later WWE empire, the Titan Sports empire. I'm saying the duo because a lot of times we give the dudes the credit and don't acknowledge the woman's role. I'm trying to tell you, Vince McMahon's a genius. He's a pioneer. But he didn't do it alone. Linda McMahon was right there for a whole lot of stuff. Watch the new documentary, Mr. McMahon. You'll see for yourself. But anyway, Donald Trump recruited Linda McMahon to do this very thing. She has no experience in education. She has no experience at the federal level. She has very little experience at the state level. She tried to do it in Connecticut to be on the board, one of the boards. And they were like, hey, you ain't got enough experience. You don't know anything about education. They contested it. But she's the perfect person to tear down a Department of Education. The White House issued a statement today. Harrison Field spoke and said, President Trump's executive order to expand educational opportunities will empower parents, states, and communities to take control and improve outcomes for all students. So they're doing the traditional states' rights. States will control education. We don't need federal intervention. Now, the first thought I had was, what about students with disabilities? People who fall under the IDEA, that's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. What about Title I funding, which for a long time has been the equalizing mechanism for low-income schools? What about federal loans? Now, according to insiders in the White House, none of that's going to change. None of that's going to change. So what is going to change? Well, for starters, they've drained the workforce. I have friends who were laid off last week and the week before, but last week mainly. $1,300 employees were laid off in March. Hundreds were given voluntary buyouts. And the federal education department is well on its way to being dismantled. Now, some of you are going to say, and you're right, this is unconstitutional. If you didn't know, you do need a congressional order to establish a new department. Remember the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11 that got created? That's relatively new. Well, that got created in 01, end of 01, maybe beginning of 02. Well, I mean, Department of Education is only about 45 years old. It's not particularly old. We once had a Department of Health, Welfare, and Education, right? Health, Education, Welfare, Health, Education, and Welfare, or something like that. Health, Welfare, and Education. I don't know. But in the Carter administration, Congress passed a bill in 78. It was, I think, approved in 79. Eventually, it came It came to be at the beginning of the Reagan administration. The entire time Reagan was around, he wanted to shrink and destroy the Department of Education. But it felt like campaign bluster. It felt like an empty gesture to his base. It didn't feel like he was really going to tear down a whole federal department, because it's a lot to get Congress to go for that. And Trump is faced with the same dilemma. Trump may or may not get all of Congress to vote, or enough of Congress to vote for the dismantling of the bill. But this is where it gets interesting. And this is where the courts are going to have to get involved. Donald Trump is doing something different. He's not officially closing the Department of Education. He's simply starting a process of dismantling it. In other words, there will be a Department of Education. It'll just be bare bones. But the executive order authorizes its liquidation. So technically he can say, I didn't get rid of the Department of Education. I'm not going around Congress. I'm just using my executive power to fire everybody and to move everything back to the states. It's an important distinction in some ways. And it's obvious what's happening here. It's the same thing that happened under Betsy DeVos. In the name of efficiency, this kind of neoliberal logic around austerity and efficiency, Donald Trump and his crew, including Elon Musk, are going to be dismantling education as we know. It's not just they're moving it to the states and expanding opportunity. No, they're trying to privatize everything. They're trying to dismantle the public education system. They are trying to strip funding out. We know that the system of education in the United States is not anything to brag about in lots of concrete ways. But we also know that over the last 50 years, we've managed to shrink the size of classes. We've managed to provide vocational training for people. We've managed to make school more affordable in a variety of ways. We've allowed special education opportunities or expanded special education opportunities for a diverse cadre of learners. I'm not even going to get into DEI and civil rights and all these other things that are now anathema to Trump's America. All those things are at stake if you get rid of the federal education departments, the federal oversight of education, federal intervention in public schooling. That's where Trump is headed. So tomorrow, you'll see the announcements. But it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Because there is also a bill in Congress right now. Thomas Massie has a bill, H.R. 899, that won't just drain the Department of Education, but would actually abolish it formally. Now, I don't know how successful this bill could be. I'll leave it to my congressional experts. But what I do know is that we're on our way to losing what little bit of educational success we've had in this country. And it won't stop at education. It just won't. He's made that clear. And one thing Trump has shown this time around is he ain't selling wolf tickets. He ain't here for a long time. He's here for a good time. And for him, a good time is destroying the social safety net. All that said, keep your eyes open. Continue to advocate. Continue to talk to your members of Congress and continue to fight for everything that we deserve.